Today we're going to do a little video. I'm going to show you how I make a carbon tip striker, along with a few other tips for conditioning your call, what not to do when conditioning your call, and just how to take care of everything before you get into the woods. That way, everybody's getting amped up. It's coming. It's 2 months away. I know, me personally, I can't wait. I'm going to be spending here within the next week, spending almost every daylight hour that I can in the woods just to start scouting and see what the birds are doing and see where they're at, see where they're roosting. I think this video will, if you wanted to make your own striker, carbon tip striker, which is basically weatherproof to a certain degree, I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to show you the steps that I take. So to start with, I just took a regular carbon arrow that you use with your bow. I took an old carbon arrow that I probably shot into the target 100 times, and just its life was out, its spines broke, so I cut off the piece that I wanted. It's about 1 inch long. And what I do next is I'll take, before I start turning my striker, I'll take my digital calipers and put that into the end of the call, or the end of the piece of carbon. And what I'll do is I'll move that until it's good and snug. What I'm gonna do is turn that and drop down to 0.24, so that's where it wants to be. And then I'll take this piece off, and then that'll give me my thickness that I need at the end of the striker to fit this piece of carbon onto the striker. As you can see, I have my blank in place here. It's a piece of cherry. This is what I'll be turning to show you. So where I start at is, obviously set your tool rest height a little bit above or a little bit below half. Set your spacing, and then turn your blank round. Okay, so once you get that round, you'll see that there's no square edges on there. I'll mark my lines. So I'll put one for the end, top of the striker, one for where my handle's gonna go, and then one for the end of the striker. Turn your lathe back on, make your marks. Okay, once you have, I have my handle set, and I have my actual striker set. So once you have that set, what I normally do is I'll go turn the striking part of it to, whatever I want. So I'll run this down until I get to the size that I think I want it to be. then what I'll do is I'll start running the end down more and taper that up. So in the end, the higher toward the handle is going to be bigger than down here, obviously. So I'm going to taper it so I feel that I'm getting close to the thickness that I want of my piece of carbon. Then I'll take the calipers that I already set, and I'll just keep, like right there is pretty close. And what you want to do is leave a little bit of a lip where your carbon is going to stop. So if I cut my carbon, I cut my piece of carbon about 1 inch long, so I'll test it. So my piece needs to come to about right where this first mark is. Right there. So what I'll do now is I'll start tapering that down a little bit to about the size of what I have right here at the end. And then I'll take my calipers again. I'm right about where I want to be. So what I'll do is I'll grab my skew and adjust your tool rest, and I'm just going to take a little bit off at a time and measure it. A little bit big, so I'll take a little bit more off. And that's right about where I want it. I want it just smaller than the inside of the piece of carbon. So now I'll take my skew and I'll just finish what I was doing. Basically what this is doing is just going to get it pretty much perfectly round, and then you'll sand it down later. Put whatever touches you want on there. So I'll run this down. Run this down a little bit. So I get a nice little... So I have about the taper that I'm looking for. So now I'll move on to the handle, and you can put whatever design you want in here. I'm just going to do a simple tapered handle. A little bit of a indent there. That'll give me just a little bit of a lip, just a little bit of a design in it. Then I'll go back to the skew chisel and I'll round that off. You can feel as you're going what it's doing. Then I basically have the start of my striker. So what I'll do now is I'll run it down, start with 180 and run it down till it's smooth, and then we'll show you what I do after that. When when you get your end here down to about the size you want, you don't want to sand it much. I hit it just to knock off those burrs, but you don't want to sand it too much because it's right at the size that you want. Once you get all the marks out of it, skip to the next grit up. Notice again, I'm staying away from here because I don't want to sand it any smaller than what it is. Skip to the 400. That last one I did was 220, so I'm just doing it in a little bit of increments here. And this will be the last one that I put on there before I put the oil on, which I won't put oil on this one because it's just a demo, but normally this is the last coat that I put on before I put the oil on it. So then you'll see we basically have our striker pretty much smoothed down to what we want. So we're going to take it off the lathe and we're going to chop it up, cut it off, and show you the next step. So basically what I'll do is I'll cut it here at the handle and cut it here at the end of the striker. Okay, now you'll see here that I cut it off. So everything's cut off, sanded the top of it on the belt sander, get that burr off that was left on there. So all that's left to do now is take your piece of carbon. I got some CA glue over here, and what I'll do is I'll just drop a piece. I just have a hole drilled in the top here. Drop my glue on there, around there, and then what I'll do is I'll just take the piece of carbon and stick it on there, and it literally is instant. I can't pull that off, and that was what, 3 seconds. So once you have that on there, your striker is pretty much done. I mean, that's the finished product. So let's see how she sounds. Got my call, and here we go. I mean, it can obviously use a little bit of sanding on the tip. So maybe, you know, again, touch the call up. I'll show you that here in a minute. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was call tuning. See here I have another striker that I made that's just a regular wood tip. With call tuning, it's a refined skill, really. If you don't normally have a conditioning stone, which is, you know, us call makers have one. That's what we condition it with in the beginning. But for the everyday woodsman, hunter, whatever, you'll notice that the grooves on these on the wood here is running straight up and down to the floor. Okay. The way I have the call conditioned is across it. So you'll always want to condition your call against the grain of the wood. And what that does is that gives you more vibration when you're going across the piece of glass or the surface or whatever. That'll give you more vibration. And what you want to do when you sand it is, instead of going in circles like this, okay, you want to hold it in the direction. So I'm going to put the call in my hand. So remember, the grooves are running from top to bottom, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is go left to right and not in a circular motion. So up and down, straight up and down. And hit it just a little bit, just enough to rough it up. You don't want to go in that circular motion. You want one way, you know, left to right, either way, the wood's running because what happens is when your striker goes across that surface, it's hitting all those other lines. So you're getting not a true tone. So here's, after I tone this out, we'll try that carbon striker again. And here's what she sounds like. So you can see that the difference is dramatic. And I'm going to show you with the wooden striker. And I'm going to play it first off against the grooves, and then I'm going to play it up and down to show you the difference of the sound. So again, I'm playing against the grooves with this. Okay, now I'm gonna play it straight up and down, like so. See how you don't get the same tone as when you play it straight across? Up and down, straight across. So again, when you condition your call, I would suggest taking either a piece of 120 or a piece of Brillo pad. Brillo pad works great. It doesn't really rough up the surface. It just cleans up what's already on there. So again, go against the grain of the wood. And you should have a pretty decent call for this spring. So good luck. Give us a like, follow us, and we'll be coming out with a bunch more footage of hunting, scouting, shed hunting. So stay tuned.